It's often said that women are the origin of life, but why did she have such a tragic fate? At just 5 years old, she lost her biological father. Her mother, devastated, developed a mental illness and soon ended her life at home, leaving little Ajen and her brother to rely on each other. With no one to turn to, they had to live with their aunt. Unexpectedly, a few days later, their aunt sold her naive brother under the guise of taking them for a walk. It wasn't until Ajen was 16 that she realized how cruel her aunt was, but she could only silently endure the pain of losing her brother. However, fate seemed not to spare her. Ajen's graceful figure and curves caught the attention of her beastly uncle, who violated her. The next day, she bravely confessed everything to her aunt. But surprisingly, her aunt blamed her for seducing her uncle instead of seeking justice. Ajen was then sent to work in town. 4 years passed quickly, and she had transformed into a stunning beauty. One day, she received a mysterious call claiming her long-lost brother was looking for her. Soon after, a man who called himself Tuolei found her. Ajen immediately recognized her brother's face. The siblings reunited, embracing and crying tears of joy, as if sharing their tragic past. Her brother took her home, where Tuolei had a beautiful wife. They loved each other deeply, but had been unable to have children for years, so working late became their mission. Due to the simplicity of the house, the sounds were unavoidable. Curious, Ajen instinctively listened at the wall and even peeked at their activities, which aroused her. Driven by desire, she used the gift her brother gave her. Not long after, Ajen's sister-in-law went to Japan. Working, leaving the siblings to rely on each other. 3 years passed, and Tuolei still had no news of his wife. To fill the void in his soul, Ajen, who already liked her brother, took the initiative to break the sibling relationship. With no elders around, they began to act shamelessly. Due to Ajen's perfect body, they intended to live happily, but soon Ajen discovered she was pregnant. To avoid neighbors finding out, Tuolei sent her back home to rest. However, after she gave birth alone, Tuolei never appeared. Worse, a typhoon destroyed her home, leaving her homeless and abandoned. Ajen decided to find Tuolei, starting a wandering life. But being penniless, she paid a heavy price. She needed to take a ferry to Manila but had no money, so she sneaked onto the ship. However, her actions were noticed by the crew, who brought her to the captain. After searching her, they found nothing valuable except an old phone and baby Essa diapers.
Pasensya na po, sir.
Wala kang pamasahe. Anong gusto mo?
Opo.
The captain ignored her pleas and was instead interested in her figure. To facilitate his assault, he had her baby taken away and violated her. Ajen realized what it meant to be a fierce woman. After enduring everything, she tried to get her child back but faced endless difficulties. The crew showed no sympathy, using her child as leverage to continue their abuse. The rough treatment caused Ajen to bleed heavily. To hide their crimes, the crew made her clean up before leaving. Perhaps fearing divine retribution, they gave her some food and a seat in the cabin. There, Ajen met an old man. During their conversation, she learned he had several painful ailments. Kind-hearted, she offered to massage him, quickly relieving his pain. Afterward, she noticed the small bottles he carried and curiously asked about them. To avoid being seen, the old man took her to a quiet corner and revealed the secret of the bottles. It turned out they contained not insects, but various poisons. Seeing the bottles, Ajen pondered. They returned to the cabin to rest. Just then, a crew member approached Ajen's bed, saying the captain wanted to see her and asked her to leave the child with the old man. Ajen suspected their intentions, but having no choice, followed the crew's instructions to reach Manila. As soon as she entered the room, the lecherous captain made her sit beside him, threatening her to undress. Despite her pleas, he forcibly embraced her, his hands roaming her body. Once again, Ajen suffered a merciless assault. Mentally exhausted, she returned to the cabin, hating the crew. Realizing that tolerance only emboldens evil, she asked the old man for poison, determined to seek justice. She quietly slipped into the kitchen, mixed the poison into a bottle of wine, and offered it to the crew. She even bravely delivered the poisoned wine to the captain's room. He showed no suspicion. The next morning, the captain felt unwell during inspection. Suffering from a severe headache and breathing difficulty. Unable to continue, he handed over docking duties to his subordinates and staggered out of the control room. Soon the ship docked in Manila. Ajen bid farewell to the kind old lady. Holding her child, she slowly disembarked, coincidentally encountering a group carrying stretchers onto the ship. Evidently, the crew who abused her were all punished. Once ashore, Ajen was lost, but a kind person helped her. Grateful, she boarded a bus to her destination. Shortly after boarding, her hungry baby began to cry. Helpless, Ajen fed her child, attracting the attention of two men who stared at her chest. As they made lewd comments, Ah Wei, who had just boarded, noticed. He revealed a weapon at his waist, and the men, mistaking him for a police officer, quickly fled. Ah Wei sat beside Ajen. Soon, the bus driver collected fares, but nervous Ajen had no money. She turned to Ah Wei for help.
Yung pulis. Tulungan.
After hearing Ajen's plea for help, Ah Wei first admitted he wasn't a cop and only brandished a weapon to scare off the thugs. He kindly agreed to help overturn the garage. Ajen initially thought he was a good person, but soon realized that all crows are black. Due to the long journey, Ah Wei suggested Ajen share past stories to pass the time. He was shocked to learn that the child's father was his brother. Despite his shock, he sympathized with her plight. However, when he heard about Ajen's experience on the ship, he was inexplicably filled with anger. He couldn't accept such immoral behavior. As the story unfolded, Ajen shed tears of sadness. Seeing this, Ah Wei immediately comforted her, trying to change the subject to ease the sorrowful atmosphere. He offered her food and a bottle of opened water. Soon after, the bus received a message that the road was blocked by floodwaters due to a typhoon. They had to stop at a nearby service area and wait until the road was repaired the next day to continue. The helpless passengers could only rest there for a while. As soon as they got off the bus, Ah Wei bought food for Ajen and even added a bowl of chicken soup. He then bought a phone from the store to help Ajen contact her brother and even slipped some cash into her hand. Ajen was so moved by Ah Wei's actions that she didn't know how to express her gratitude. It was then that Ajen realized he made an excessive demand. There's no such thing as a free lunch. Although Ajen could refuse, she felt compelled to enter the hotel. Once inside, Ah Wei asked her to take a shower first. Despite knowing his ill intentions, she placed the child on the bed and began to undress in the bathroom. Meanwhile, Ah Wei watched through the curtain, unable to control his growing emotions. He slowly entered the bathroom, and after their deep conversation, the exhausted Ajen fell asleep in the room. But just then, Ah Wei's wife called. Perhaps not wanting any more ties with Ajen or feeling guilty for betraying his wife, Ah Wei quietly left. The next morning, Ajen seemed to have anticipated Ah Wei's departure. She calmly boarded the bus with her child. However, Ah Wei was shocked when he returned home to his wife and child and saw the news on TV. He was implicated in a kidnapping and murder case. It turned out Ajen's child had died in the hospital and the trauma drove her insane. She secretly took someone else's child from the hospital. The police had already identified Ah Wei as the mastermind behind the child trafficking through service area surveillance. Seeing the news, his wife checked her phone and found flirtatious messages between him and Ajen. Ah Wei was at a loss, unaware that Ajen hadn't truly slept the previous night. She had secretly sent flirtatious messages between their phones at midnight. Seeing all this, his wife angrily smashed her phone. But as they argued, the police arrived, having already arrested Ajen. She blamed everything on Awe, claiming she was forced and that the poisonous seeds were given by him to poison the cruise ship crew. Learning all this, Awe was unwilling to accept it. He took advantage of the police's relaxed vigilance to escape. Just as he was about to pick up a weapon to fight back, he was shot dead by the police on the spot. Ajahn abandoned by her. Brother and devastated by the loss of her child, was drawn into various situations on her journey to find her brother, forcing her to use her body to secure transportation. But the men with ill intentions received the violence they deserved. This concludes the story.